Shalom, shalom. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero, Ways of Israel. And early in the morning, contemplating on a lot of things in my head as a result of a meeting that the Rabbinical Association had. By and large, I need to let you know that anyone contemplating joining any Rabbinical Association that's part of most of the Jewish federations around the world, be it known that most of these bodies of the Jewish Federation tend to be managed and administered by Jews who happen to be on the left of the spectrum. Progressive left, tend to be reform, conservative, reconstructionist in their ideology, and therefore they look at anyone that's from the right as an extremist. If you're a religious right, if you believe in Torah, if you observe Torah, you will be perceived as an extremist. They may not say it to you, but you are an extremist to their mindset. To such an extent, since there was a journalist, reporter that had met, and I'm saying, is this a equal, balanced presentation, or is this one-sided? And let me say this, since there is such a deluge of anti-center to the right in all of the different meetings, it needs to be very clear that does not necessarily represent Torah when you go to the left. And the hatred and the spewing out of hatred from some of these leaders was astonishing to me. Just because you have embraced ideologies that basically are anti-Torah or not necessarily embraced by Torah concepts, that you're more open, more enlightened, more in depth to what the people want, doesn't mean that that's the correct way to go. See, the Israeli community voted for a very strong, to the right type of government. And the first thing they began to do, and through different medias, is to label them right extremists. Right extremists. Now, all of this is because of Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is a person who knew Rabbi Meir Kahane, who had very, very strong convictions, very, very strong Torah ideologies. He was a Cohen, and a lot of the things that Meir Kahane said has come to fruition. So the fact that he embraces that ideology, and that ideology, which was embraced under the JDL, the Jewish Defense League, was illegalized or made into a terrorist organization in Israel, although it was lifted, nevertheless had its ramification for the parties on the left. Obviously, what Itamar Ben-Gvir is doing is an incredible job to defend Israelis and the Jewish nation in ways that have shaken up those who are on the left. Because obviously he wants to make sure things are done according to Torah, according to the halakha. He's a modern, Orthodox, Jewish Zionist, biblical Zionist, who believes in bringing back the land and the people in the proper way that God wants to. So I have no issues with him, and I would encourage those rabbis who are on the left to invite him and his group to come speak at your synagogue, if you dare to hear the truth. The problem is, you've come to realize that people who are on the left are more extremist. They are more racist, more prejudicial, and more antagonistic against anything that doesn't fall in their way of thinking. The most intolerant people that I have seen throughout my years in the Jewish world has been on the left. And that's a sad comment, my friends, because as a result we're seeing an increase in anti-Semitism due to the leftist progressive ideologies that has so saturated the United States, and therefore need to bring all of this into accountability. And it falls on the shoulders of many of those on the left, inciting and hurting the values of the American way of life. What I'm saying is, if you see anti-Semitism arise, it's really because of the leftist liberal positions that they've taken. They've been very open to try to deal with the Palestinian cause. They've been very open to deal with the issues of the LGBTQI cause, and they've been very open and very tolerant towards these other groups that they consider that they need to be more open and liberal to. You'll notice this in a lot of the liberal, leftist, democratic Jews that run for office. Nevertheless, for the very moment you have someone who is like a Torah-thumping Jew who believes in the Torah value, they are now the extremist right. And notice how even the whole entire legacy media and the whole entire media, social media, plays into that narrative. The right and religious rights are bad, and the liberal left and the anti-Torah value is good. So what was called good before is now called bad and evil. My friends, this is what's happening, and this is why there's a struggle. There is a wrestling for the soul of this nation, whether it's going to embrace that which is right, which is now declared wrong, and that which is wrong to reject all the evil ideologies that goes with it. Part of that ideology, my friends, it has to do with things that are contrary to Torah values. There is not one Orthodox Jew that will say to you that, yes, we accept this type of lifestyle as being kosher. And I'm referring to the lifestyle that has been so protected by the progressive left. And what's the real fear? Let's talk about that. What is the real fear that is embracing many on the left? Which is why they're screaming, foul, no, they're evil, no, they're extremists, they're fascists. When in fact they are, that has demonstrated through these years under the democratic rule and the liberal leftist progressive policies, the most racist, the most hateful, the most intolerant people that you can ever imagine. So my friends, the problem is not the right. That has always been tolerant, always been open to different ideologies. It's always been the left and their idea of what is right, which is really not right, it's wrong. This is the problem even within many of our Jewish communities and Jewish institutions, including rabbinical associations that will go in line with whatever the liberal leftist government says. And this is why they hate Trump. This is why they hate everything to the right, everything they smell as biblical, as radical biblical values. This is what's wrong with the current party. I was reading this morning, reason for a lot of my conversation here, especially with what I experienced very quietly at the association, was the fact that everything that has the appearance of the right, like the Itamar Ben-Gvir's movement in Israel, which I congratulate every single Israeli that voted this government in. And be honest with you, I think that what Bibi is doing is good, but it's still considered by some too liberal and too accommodating to the left. That's the fact, because he needs to be able to form a unity government. But it doesn't reach to what the religious right in Israel wants to achieve. They want the right to go to the temple, a right that was represented by Itamar Ben-Gvir. He went there as a demonstration to say, I have, as a Jew, have a right to come to the Temple Mount. Every single Jew, every single Muslim, every single Christian has that right to go to the Temple Mount. I would even go one step further. That which divides these different religious groups, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, in regards to the Temple Mount, they should take it a step further. They should be the first one to declare and say, we want to do the correct thing and we want to rebuild the temple. We want to restore the temple. Because after all, if you look at history, those two elements were implicitly involved in the destruction of the temple. Now, talking about reparation, let's talk about that for a moment. We talk about reparation of the black community. We talk about reparation of those that have been prejudiced and rejected. And they talk about reparation of things that were damaged. I mean, one of the things that need to be repaired here is Black Lives Movement, and all of these movements to the left need to begin repairing all of those businesses that they destroyed during their quote-unquote peaceful march. That's what I think they need to do. And then after that, they need to start looking at what they destroyed over 2,000 years ago at the Temple Mount and begin a restoration and reparation project to rebuild the temple. Bring it back and you'll see blessings coming your way. But instead, you have the liberal leftist leaders like this guy who stole the election in Brazil. Yes, Da Silva, who may be of Jewish descent. I don't know for sure. But he was convicted as a felon in Brazil, and he basically, with monies from outside, helped fund a complete fraudulent election that turned over, what was it? The electoral voting system. The same that's used in Venezuela, the same that's used in Nicaragua, the same that's used in Cuba, the same system that they implanted in Brazil, and the same system that was used here in America in 2020, and yet there's no problem with our election processes. My friend, if anything, we know that there is problems, major hands inside, in and out the whole entire electoral process. Yes, electoral integrity has been placed more and beyond questionable doubt. As a matter of fact, now that there's a next election in 2024, the same states that were involved in flipping over their votes to Biden are the same 4 states that we'll be looking at in this coming 2024. Why? We don't trust the Democrats and their entire switching, especially after knowing what was revealed by the Twitter files. We know they'll do anything to steal an election. They'll do anything to stop you, the